Welcome back to Tennis Unfiltered, the Roland Garros diaries, with me, James Gray of iNews.co.uk and the iNewspaper. It is, yes, we are about to start the quarterfinals of the French Open. I sort of say it with a slight air of disbelief because it feels like I've been at this tournament for about a month, which is, I imagine, is how the 16 players who have made the quarterfinals feel. It is a long, old schlep, and most of them have been there for, well, where are we? Tuesday, second week now. Most of them will have arrived if they weren't playing elsewhere Monday or Tuesday the week before. So a lot of them will have been here 2 weeks, and as Iga Świątek often says, there's no such thing as a day off at a tennis tournament. Even if you're not playing, you're still hitting, you're still thinking, you're still analysing. And so, yes, I think there probably is a little bit of fatigue starting to set in all round, but that is when the best tennis and the best intensity is produced. Looking back at yesterday, because I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, as I was pretty otherwise engaged last night, doing a bit of TV in the US. If you're a US listener and you have Amazon, I don't really know how Prime Video works over there, but I was on Renee Stubbs' Power Hour last night, so you can you might hear some of the same stuff, but you'll be able to see my face and also hear from Renee, who obviously knows a fair bit about Grand Slam tennis as well. But anyway, moving on from that, the pick of the matches yesterday, well, basically they were all on Long Glen to an extent, because the opening match of the day was Sarah Sorribes Tormo against Beatrice Haddad-Maia. It was the longest match, women's match, of 2023 so far. The shortest set was an hour and 14 minutes. The longest one, an hour and 23. They went 3 hours 51 in the end. Beatrice Haddad-Maia coming from a set down to win 6-7, 6-3, 7-5. I mean, you probably could have predicted that being one of the longest matches of the year when you looked at the two kind of players involved, because they're both, and I don't mean this as disrespect, they're both quite grindy. I think Haddad-Maia has made so much progress in the last 12 months because she is incredibly sticky and works incredibly hard and is a very difficult player to beat. She's left-handed as well, she's tall, she moves well, and it's exciting to see her in the quarterfinals because I think it's weird. She's someone who's obviously made it up to wherever she is, 14 in the world or so, without ever having made it past the third round of a slam. You know, she's been super consistent at other events, but never, frankly, where it matters, because the majority of people don't know your name if you've never made it past the third round of a Grand Slam. This is where it does really matter. I mean, I think outside of the French Open, she'd never even made it past the second round of a slam. No, I'm being told, in fact, she had never made it past the second round of a slam, which kind of makes it all the more impressive that she's got her ranking to where it is. But, yeah, as I say, people don't know who you are unless you're doing it at the really big events. And this is perhaps the first of many. Which I think would be a positive. We talk a lot about, she's obviously from Brazil, for people who don't know. And we've talked a lot about how South America is a massive tennis market and it's quite underserved. They obviously have the sort of little clay court swing after the Australian Open, tournaments in Rio and Buenos Aires, but in reality, there aren't enough big tournaments in South America for the number of people who watch and play tennis in that part of the world. And I think what would change it is like 1 or 2 or 3 players from South America consistently, in the top 2 or 3 at the latter stages of Grand Slam. So if you saw, let's say, Beatrice Haddad-Maia consistently up there, Francisco Cerundolo, who played next on that same court, consistently up there. I don't know, even Nicolas Jarry, who lost to Casper Ruud yesterday. If you had 3 or 4, I mean, I'm not saying Nicolas Jarry is about to be world number 3 for the record, but if you had 3 or 4 players from that region consistently up there, then I think the ATP and the WTA would have to look at it and go, well, maybe maybe we should stick a Masters event down there, or maybe we should have a World Tour Finals down there. WTA World Tour Finals in like Buenos Aires or something in November. That would be. I think they go pretty mad for that if you got an Argentinian through as well. I think that does look a little less likely on the women's side. Nadia Podoroska, I think, is the Argentinian number one, and she's only just inside the top 100. But as I say, there's Beatriz Haddad-Maia, and Rio de Janeiro, a lot of people there. I imagine there's quite a few tennis fans as well. Anyway, cracking match. Haddad-Maia pretty emotional to have got through it, as you can understand. And she now plays Ons Jabeur, who, in total contrast, beat Bernarda Pera 3-1 in 64 minutes. So there's a chance that she might well be quite a bit fresher than Beatriz Haddad-Maia, who I'm sure today will be spending a lot of time in an ice bath and taking the weight off her legs, I suspect. As I alluded to, that match was followed by Francisco Cerundolo, the Argentinian world number 23 and the number 23 seed. He was up against Holger Rune. Now, Cerundolo, a little bit like the two women who preceded him, he is a bit of a grinder, but he's a very capable grinder. He's a very good player. He's obviously got a brother who people will know as well, but he's not nearly as talented, I would suggest, as Francisco, who people might remember he played Andy Murray last year, and actually at the US Open. And actually, by coincidence, there was a similar incident in this match as there was in that one. If you remember, Murray was playing Cerundolo, played a drop volley, and Cerundolo ran it down and got there, but it just bounced before he hit it. Just bounced the second time before he hit it. Murray stopped, lost a point. Umpire didn't call it. The replay then came up on the big screen, and both players saw it, and Cerundolo said, no, that's fair enough, yeah, it's your point. And he conceded the point. The umpire wasn't going to change his decision, which is the rule. There is no video replay, after all. But video review, anyway, by an umpire. It's not allowed. It's not part of the tour. And Murray was very complimentary afterwards. He said not a lot of other players on the tour would have done that, so fair play. And by kind of bizarre coincidence, the same thing happened. Well, kind of the same thing happened in this match. Weirdly, it was a double bounce at the back of the court, which you so rarely see. It's more often like player running to the net to get a drop shot or a drop volley. But Rune was super deep. The ball bounced low, stayed low, and just before he got it back, it bounced again, quite clearly actually. But obviously, chair's a reasonable distance away, and really weirdly, Rune got it back, and Cerundolo would have been able to put it away, but he had stopped and complained to the umpire that it bounced twice, and the umpire then gave it as a hindrance because he was talking during the point. So Rune was awarded the point. The replay then did appear on a big screen, as far as I can tell. I don't think the players saw it, but it was pretty clear. It was much more clear than that previous one I was alluding to. So I guess it's just one of those things. It does happen. It makes a mockery of the fact that we don't have video replay. Rune said, I felt sorry for him, and then I managed to break and hold serve, and then after he broke me and it was close again. This is tennis, this is sport. Some umpires make mistakes, some for him, some for me. That's life. He's right. That is life, and umpires do make mistakes, and that's fine. But when a mistake can be so easily rectified, if you made it like the Hawkeye Challenge system at Wimbledon, where each player has one video review request per set, you'd very rarely find yourself needing more than one. And it would, the match stops for a minute anyway while they argue about it. So I can't see that it would take much time out of the match. As you know, I'm a big fan of making sure tennis matches don't last too long, but I don't see that umpire video review would add huge amounts of time to it, as far as I can tell. Holger Rune threw in 5 sets, 10-7 in a 5th set tiebreak. He did look a bit cooked, actually, in the 4th set, which he lost 6-1. He well, it looked like he was going to take a medical timeout, but actually he just had the trainer came on and gave him some solubles, presumably because he was just struggling with a little bit of cramp or just low energy, which is kind of understandable at that point. And so he didn't take a medical timeout because you're not allowed to for loss of condition. But yeah, he kind of rallied in the fifth set, and probably shouldn't have gone to a tiebreak because he did serve for the match at 5-4 and was at 5-4 and was subsequently broken. But he came through the tiebreak. It was incredibly close. I mean, he was 7-6 down and then won the next 4 points to seal the match. The couple of backhands he hit in that tiebreak were really brave and memorable, and it was interesting because actually it wasn't that long a match. It was only just under 4 hours, which is long, but for 5 sets on clay, you might expect it to be even longer. But interesting to see how he pulls up. Obviously, he's got a day to recover, and then he faces Casper Ruud, a direct rerun of last year's quarter-final. A grudge match that was. For people who don't remember, it was 4 sets, it was late night, there was a sort of cursory handshake that Ruud made a sort of, all right, okay, that's how it's going to be face. Ruud, I should say, made a, that's how it's going to be face afterwards. And then there was the locker room Yar-gate, where Rune alleged that Ruud had come up to him in the locker room and kind of celebrated, the sort of Yar! And Ruud said it didn't happen. Rune's mum said it did happen. Ruud's dad said it didn't happen. I mean, brilliant drama. And the kind of locker room antics that we know go on all the time. And the Netflix cameras never seem to capture, unfortunately. Even though I think they were following Casper Ruud that tournament. I can't remember. They definitely did follow him at one of those tournaments. Anyway. Yeah, so they will meet again. I think the implication is it's all in the past, but I think the intensity of a Grand Slam quarterfinal might open up a few old wounds, so we shall see, and we'll see exactly when that gets scheduled as well. Maybe, I think that could be the night match on Wednesday. I correctly predicted the night match tonight, which is Carlos Alcaraz Tsitsipas, so I'm pleased with that. In fact, yeah, unless it's Swiatek Goff, which is possible, but they don't like putting women on at night here, as discussed. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the other quarterfinal that was set yesterday. Alexander Zverev dispatched Grigor Dimitrov for the loss of just 8 games. I said it to Renee Stubbs last night. I don't like saying it, but Alexander Zverev is looking very good, and I expect him to make the semi-finals now and be a very real candidate to make the final, because he was playing brilliant clay court tennis before he tore those 3 ligaments last year. He, I think, has just about got back to that level. Maybe not that level, but one of his best levels. I was unconvinced by his fitness coming in, but he's shown now, and he's conserved energy really well. Beating Dimitrov like that, it's a really important thing to do. He obviously, I think he dropped 1 set to Tiafoe, which is kind of forgivable. But other than that, he's been pretty efficient. Beat Molchan in the night session last Thursday. Lloyd Harris in the first round, again in straight sets. So he's doing what he needs to do. And frankly, he's got a really good matchup. I don't know huge amounts about Thomas Martin Etcheverry, but this is obviously the biggest match of his life, a French Open quarterfinal. And yes, he's a good clay quarter, but before this tournament, he had won 1 main draw match at a Grand Slam. So, yeah, he might play with a bit, kind of devil-may-care attitude. And compared to Zverev, who is a pretty nervy guy, and will have a lot of pressure on him because he's so expected to win, that may count for something. But I think the gulf in quality is probably going to see him come out victorious. I don't know. I've been wrong before, but that's just my guess. And now to the other women's quarterfinal that was set yesterday. Coco Gauff and Iga Świątek both coming through. Gauff beating Anna Karolina Schmidlova, one of George Belchaw's favourites, 7-5, 6-2. And Iga Swiatek coming through against Lesia Tsurenko, who retired 5-1 down in the first. Now, look, I know Tsurenko, I think that's her 4th retirement of the year. It's her 32nd retirement of her career, which is pretty remarkable. That's across 15 years, I should say, but even so, that's, that is a lot. And to be fair, she looked really ill. The doctor was out taking her blood pressure and her pulse, and she looked so annoyed, and she was slapping her thigh in frustration, and then she sort of pulled a load of tissues out of her bag that clearly she was prepared to be blowing her nose, because I think she has been ill. She mentioned Rybakina, who withdrew with the virus, and there does seem to have been something going around the locker room. Quite a lot of them have been ill. Last year it was COVID. I know of several players who had COVID in the locker room last year, and no one knew. Well, no one publicly knew. There's clearly something going around. It does happen. People travel a lot. Immune systems are low. You're in close proximity with a lot of people. I don't know how small the locker rooms are here, but my impression, given that everything else is pretty cramped, is that it probably isn't the most spacious place in tennis. So I'll ask Calvin about that one, but that's my guess. Right, on to the quarterfinals on Tuesday. Karolina Muchova and Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova open up on Chatrier. Big match for both of them. I would guess Muchova will come through that, but Pavlyuchenkova is finding her feet brilliantly since injury, and it would be huge for her if she won that. And she's obviously been here before. She made the final here 2 years ago, so there shouldn't be any kind of, oh God, what is this quarterfinal thing? And Muchova, similarly, this is not uncharted territory for her, I think I'm right in saying. So, both women who've experienced this before, albeit Muchova not at the French Open. She has been to quarterfinals, obviously at Wimbledon, and she won one in Australia 2 years ago. I think I would still back her in that. Then we've got Svitolina against Sabalenka, the great geopolitics derby. I would suggest you go and read what I've written for the iNewspaper about this. Svitolina, I don't know, I can't pick a winner. I think Sabalenka is the favourite. In fact, I know she will be the favourite with the bookies. But Svitolina's played some great tennis. She's super motivated. And I think it might get under Sabalenka's skin a bit. I think you might see a little bit of a crackle there. She's obviously still not doing public press conferences at the moment. I think that suggests she knows that the whole thing could get to her. And I think Svitolina might get under her skin a bit. So really interested to see how that plays out. I think the day ascends. Djokovic versus Khachanov is next. Khachanov has lost his last 7 matches against Djokovic. He's beaten him once in his career, which was the Paris Masters final in 2018. I think I'm right in saying. And, it was in the same city, but couldn't really be in more different conditions indoors at Bercy than, outdoors in the heat at Roland Garros. And then finally, Alcaraz Tsitsipas, the night match tonight. Another really one-sided head-to-head because Alcaraz is 4-0 against Tsitsipas. But I think it'll be a really good match. In Barcelona, Alcaraz pumped him, frankly. Tsitsipas seemed to want to trade backhands with him, and that didn't end well. I hope that there's a different game plan this time, because I think if he goes and tries to just go backhand to backhand again, it'll end the same way. But we're 2 wins away from the Djokovic-Alcaraz semi-final on Friday, which is kind of what we all looked at when the draw came out and said, I think I might be booking Friday afternoon off work. I mean, obviously, I'm not booking Friday afternoon off work, but I would suggest that maybe some other people might be best placed to do so. I would still expect Djokovic and Alcaraz to win today. Obviously, they've got the head-to-head records to go for them, but I would like both of them to be tested. It would be nice if they both had to play 4 sets and raise their game a bit. I kind of think they would both think that as well. Neither of them have really been pushed, and you can often see Djokovic kind of having to fire himself up because he's winning so easily. And I think for that reason, he would really appreciate just, getting pushed a little bit more. So, yeah, I think he genuinely would like to not have it so easy. Anyway, that is all we've got time for today. I will be back tomorrow, possibly with George Belshaw, the famous. And, yeah, you can come back tomorrow and listen to that one.
Sports Social Podcast Network.